There are things that institution protects.
Not secrets, exactly. Not classified information or confidential briefings or the kind of carefully guarded knowledge that gets locked in rooms and distributed only to people with the clearance to receive it. Something more subtle than that. Something more valuable. The thing that institutions protect most carefully is the appearance of certainty. The impression, maintained through protocol and choreography and the careful management of every public-facing moment, that the people inside the institution know exactly what they are doing. That the systems are working. That the distance between the official account and the actual reality is small enough to be professionally ignored. That impression is not maintained through dishonesty. It is maintained through control. Control of what is shown. Control of what is said. Control of the emotional register of every public moment, the careful, practiced neutrality of institutional faces that have learned to communicate competence rather than feeling. For a monarchy, that control is not optional. It is the architecture. The entire structure of royal public life, the ceremonies, the protocols, the managed distances and choreographed appearances, exists to maintain the impression of an institution that is above the turbulence of ordinary human experience. Not cold, not indifferent, above, elevated, composed, certain, and into that architecture, into the carefully maintained impression of an institution that knows exactly what it is and what it is for. Princess Leonor revealed something she was never supposed to reveal. Not in a press conference. Not in an interview. Not in any of the officially managed formats through which royals communicate with the public. In the unmanaged moments. The moments between the ceremonies. The moments that the institutional architecture is not built to contain. And what she revealed, what slipped through the careful control of a lifetime of preparation, not despite her training but alongside it, was doubt. Real, visible, human doubt. About what the institution is for. About whether the forms it takes still serve the purposes it claims to serve. About the gap, the same gap she has been asking about in briefing rooms and military academies and the quiet working environments of her preparation, between what the monarchy says it is and what the people it serves actually need it to be. She was never supposed to show that. And then she did. To understand why this matters, why the revelation of doubt in a future monarch is significant rather than simply human, you need to understand what doubt is supposed to look like inside a royal institution. It is supposed to look like nothing. Not because monarchs do not experience doubt. Not because the people who occupy the symbolic center of ancient institutions navigate the extraordinary complexity of that position without uncertainty. But because doubt, in an institution built on the communication of certainty, is not a private experience. It is a public liability. A monarchy that appears uncertain about its own purpose gives its critics the opening they are always looking for. The question, is this institution still necessary? Does it still serve a function that justifies its cost, its privilege, its claim on the symbolic life of a nation, is never not being asked. It circulates permanently, in journalism and academia and the ordinary political conversations of citizens who live inside constitutional monarchies and have the democratic right to question whether those monarchies should continue to exist. The answer that the institution provides, implicitly, through the posture and the performance and the composed certainty of the people who embody it, is, yes. Of course. Visibly, obviously, without question. Yes. That answer requires a specific kind of face. A face that does not show the question. Leonor's face has been showing the question. The first time it was visible, really visible, not as a fleeting micro-expression but as a sustained, documented, publicly observable presence, was at an official function that she had attended dozens of times before. A ceremony of the kind that royal calendars are built around. Formal, structured, choreographed down to the minute. The kind of event that, for a future monarch in the final stages of preparation, should be navigable in near-automatic mode. The protocols internalized, the emotional management practiced, the institutional face fully in place. Her face was not fully in place. Not because it showed distress. Not because it broke in any of the ways that tabloid journalism would have found legible and exploitable. But because it showed something underneath the ceremony. Something that the ceremony was not designed to contain. She was watching the event, the formal proceedings, the institutional choreography, the careful performance of continuity and tradition and the symbolic weight of an ancient institution reaffirming itself, and her expression was not the expression of someone performing their relationship to a tradition they have accepted. It was the expression of someone asking whether the tradition still fits the world it was built to serve. That expression lasted several seconds. It was photographed. And the people who analyze these things, the royal correspondents and the institutional historians and the political scientists who study the relationship between symbolic power and democratic legitimacy, noticed. Not because it was unprecedented. Not because no future monarch had ever shown a moment of visible uncertainty in a public setting. But because it was so clearly not a moment. It was a pattern. The pattern had been building for years. In Zaragoza, where Leonor completed her military training, the accounts that emerged, carefully, through the professional networks of people who observed her preparation, described something that the military environment had not fully anticipated. A future commander-in-chief who was visibly working through the question of authority. Not refusing it, not rejecting the institutional hierarchy that military environments are built on. Working through it. Asking, not out loud, not in the direct way she asked questions in briefing rooms, but in the visible, embodied way that a person's behavior communicates what their professional language is not expressing, what authority is actually for. The distance that rank creates. The protocols that maintain hierarchy. The formal structures that ensure the military functions as an institution rather than as a collection of individuals with competing instincts. She participated in all of it. And she was also, simultaneously, visibly asking whether the distance was necessary. Whether the protocols served the people inside them or simply maintained the appearance of an institution that had learned to perpetuate its own forms. Her fellow cadets described someone who did not perform the distance that her position entitled her to maintain. Who sat in the canteen and asked questions about their lives and listened, really listened, the specific quality of attention that people remember because it is rare, to the answers. Who treated the question of what it felt like to be the people around her not as a diplomatic nicety but as information she actually needed. That behavior was noticed. In an institution built on hierarchy and protocol and the managed distances of rank, a future commander-in-chief who refused to perform the distance was doing something that the institution did not have a clear framework for. She was leading from inside the experience rather than above it. And the doubt that produced that behavior, the doubt about whether elevation serves the people it claims to represent, was visible to everyone who was watching. The moment that made it undeniable happened not in Spain. It happened in Wales. At Atlantic College, the international school where Leonor spent time as part of the educational component of her preparation, in circumstances that were, by institutional standards, relatively informal. An environment designed around contact between young people from different nations and different circumstances. An environment where the managed distances of official royal life were structurally reduced, where the choreography of ceremony was replaced by the ordinary friction of institutional living. She was in a conversation with students from countries experiencing significant political and economic crisis. Students whose lives, whose families' lives, whose communities' lives, were being shaped by the kind of systemic dysfunction that policy briefings describe in the abstract language of institutional analysis. And something happened in that conversation that the people who observed it described afterward with a consistency that is itself significant. She stopped asking the questions that her preparation had equipped her to ask. The engaged, intelligent, appropriately curious questions of a future monarch demonstrating genuine interest in the people she will eventually serve. And started asking different questions. Questions that came from a different place. Not from the institutional position of a future queen learning about the experiences of her future subjects. From the place of someone who was genuinely uncertain. Who was sitting across from young people whose lives were shaped by forces that the institution she was being prepared to embody had not prevented, had not addressed, had in some cases contributed to. And did not know what to say. The doubt was visible, not as collapse, not as crisis, not as any of the things that institutional management is designed to prevent. As something more human than any of those. As the specific, visible, undeniable experience of a person who has been told what she is for, who has accepted the preparation, the training, the careful construction of a future queen, and is sitting in a moment that the preparation did not fully account for. A moment that required not institutional competence but human honesty. And the honesty was there. In her face. In the quality of her silence. In the specific way that she listened to answers that she could not solve and did not pretend to be able to solve. She was never supposed to show that. She showed it. Here is what the revelation of doubt actually means. Not the tabloid version, the version that reads visible uncertainty in a future monarch as weakness, as evidence of inadequate preparation, as a crack in the institutional facade that critics of the monarchy can exploit. The other version, the version that understands what institutions are actually for and what the people who lead them actually need to be. Institutions do not fail because the people inside them are uncertain. They fail because the people inside them have stopped being uncertain, have completed the institutional formation process, have internalized the protocols and the hierarchies and the managed distances, so thoroughly that the gap between the institutional account and the human reality has become invisible to them. Not because they are dishonest. Because they have been inside the institution long enough that its categories have become the only categories available. The questions that would reveal the gap are no longer questions they know how to ask. A future monarch who reaches the throne in that condition is not prepared. She is formatted, prepared to perform the institution, prepared to maintain its forms and honor its traditions and navigate its protocols with the practiced competence of someone who has spent a lifetime learning what is and is not said in rooms like these. Not prepared to ask, from the position of a reigning queen, whether the forms still serve the people they were built for. Leonor is not formatted. The doubt that appeared on her face during that ceremony, the doubt that was visible in Zaragoza and in Wales and in every unmanaged moment of her preparation, is not a failure of institutional formation. It is evidence of something that institutional formation cannot produce. A genuine relationship with the question of what the institution is for. Not the performed relationship. Not the diplomatic engagement with the abstract principle of service and continuity and the symbolic weight of an ancient institution. The real relationship, the one that lives in the gap between what the institution says it is and what the people it serves actually experience. She has been in that gap. She has been asking questions from there. And the doubt that those questions produce, the visible, undeniable, never supposed to be shown doubt of a future queen who is genuinely uncertain about whether the forms she is being prepared to perform still fit the world she will reign over, is not her weakness. It is her qualification. The monarchy that Leonor will inherit is not the monarchy her grandfather reigned over. It is not even the monarchy her father has navigated through a period of extraordinary institutional challenge, the corruption cases, the questions of legitimacy, the shifting relationship between the crown and a Spanish public that has become more willing than any previous generation to ask whether the institution earns its place. It is a monarchy that needs, more than it needs ceremony or continuity or the reassuring performance of ancient tradition. A person who sees the gap. Who has been trained in the institutional architecture and has also, simultaneously, maintained the capacity to look at that architecture from outside its own assumptions. Who can walk into a briefing room and ask why the people most affected were not consulted. Who can sit in a canteen and listen to cadets as if their experience is information she actually needs. Who can sit across from students whose lives have been shaped by systemic failure and show, on her face, in her silence, in the quality of her attention, the honest weight of that. Who can be seen to not know. In a world that has grown exhausted by leaders who perform certainty they do not have. That is not a liability. That is a form of trust. And trust, for a monarchy navigating the specific pressures of the 21st century, is not a soft virtue. It is the only thing that makes the institution survivable. She was never supposed to reveal the doubt. The institution she was born into, the preparation she received, the protocols she learned, the careful management of every public-facing moment of her formation, was built to ensure that the doubt stayed private. That the face shown to the public was the composed, certain, institutionally appropriate face of a future queen who knows what she is for. She showed the other face. Not because she lost control. Not because the preparation failed. Because she is paying attention to something the preparation was not designed to address. The reality underneath the performance. The people underneath the protocols. The question underneath all the carefully managed institutional answers. Is this still working? Not what the briefing says. Not what the protocol requires. Not what the institutional framework has determined should be communicated. Is this actually, honestly, still working for the people it was built to serve? She is going to take that question all the way to the throne. And the doubt that was never supposed to be visible is going to become the most visible thing about her reign. Now here is why you need to stay with this channel. Because what we have covered in this video, the doubt, the pattern, the qualification hiding inside the thing the institution feared most, is only half of the story. The other half is what happens next. There is a moment coming in Leonor's public life that the people closest to the Spanish monarchy have been quietly preparing for and publicly avoiding discussing. A moment that will require her to make a choice. Not between two policies, not between two diplomatic positions, not between any of the manageable, institutionally navigable choices that royal preparation is designed to equip future monarchs to make. A choice between two versions of herself. The version the institution built, and the version the doubt points toward. That moment, what it is, when it arrives, and what her choice will reveal about everything we have been watching her become, is the next video. And if you have watched this far, if the pattern we have been tracing has landed the way it was built to land, you already know that you need to see it. Subscribe now. Turn the notification bell on. Because the next video is not analysis. It is the answer to the question Leonor has been asking since before she knew she was asking it. And to the question you have been asking about her. I will see you there.